Okay, your turn now, Chiffon.
What?
Now come here and get yourself seated so I can start your trim.
What?
I don't see why not. Did you have anything specific in mind? Ooh, that's a good one, that's for sure. Say, did you by chance hear about that from one of the other cakes? Fair enough. It is one of my favorite stories after all. I'm honestly surprised I haven't told it to you yet, Chiffon. Oh, not on purpose. Of course you are. Anyways, the story begins with me as a young and fresh cookie, why I hadn't even made my first cakehound yet at a time. Though, one could certainly argue that such a fact was because this was before even the Dark Flower War. Dark Enchantress Cookie had taken me to the edge of the city, adorning the form of her old self. I was certainly confused, asking many questions. But to all of them she simply told me to trust her. And I certainly did. Oh, well, you see, even though Dark Enchantress Cookie was reborn from the cookie she once was, she still had that lust for truth that her old self had had before her. And the City of Wizards was known for holding within it all sorts of different truth, especially within its archives. But before all that, we had to get there in order to explore. And to do that, we had to enter the world of dreams. The details on how we ended up from being near that statue, being in the train station, are very blurry to me. I couldn't tell you about them if I tried. But once we were there, it was certainly very chaotic.
What?
In a sense, it certainly was. But it was also rather stressful. For me, anyway.
Oh.
Well, to be blunt, I wasn't sure where I was supposed to be going. Which makes it quite nice that I had Dark Enchantress Cookie with me. She held my hand the whole time as we waved through the hordes of other people going by. But eventually, we found our way to the correct train. I still remember the train conductor rather well after all these years. She was the type of cookie that you would assume to be very lazy at first glance, with her always looking like she was about to fall asleep and all. But I assure you that such an assumption would be incorrect. She was very diligent in making sure each and every one of us on the train were well seated and comfortable. Not to mention that she helped me find my tickets when I had not realized that they were in my pocket.
Oh.
Couldn't tell ya. I don't even remember putting the tickets in there, or even buying tickets to begin with. And yet, there they were.
Oh.
But other than that, the train ride was smooth sailing. I even got a couple of snacks on the way there. But eventually, the ride had to end, and Dark Enchantress Cookie and I had finally reached our destination, Wizard's Way Station. I wish I could have spent more time in the city itself looking back. What I did see of it I remember being absolutely gorgeous, but we were on a mission. Dark Enchantress Cookie went into the archives first, her appearance as her past self being a welcome one to cookies all around, due to her now abandoned status as a hero of legend. While I followed behind her, using the aid of the shadows to hide my far less recognizable self from view. The view of the librarian, Blueberry Pie Cookie. From what I saw of her and my brief looks between scurrying around the archives, I could tell that Blueberry Pie Cookie was certainly a dedicated cookie indeed. She diligently cared for each and every one of the books in the archives all by herself, What a hard job that must have been. And to do her best to make sure that none of the many books containing mass amounts of sacred knowledge ever left the walls of the archives, too. Ah, what a hard-working cookie. Too bad that Dark Enchantress Cookie and I had other plans. Dark Enchantress Cookie was specifically keeping her eyes out for any books pertaining to the witches. Sure, the information may be less accurate coming from the perspective of the wizards, but any information is good information when it comes to an adversary. As for me, Dark Enchantress Cookie told me to just grab whatever caught my eye, as she trusted me enough to be able to find something worthwhile. But to be completely honest, I was more focused on being stealthy at first, so I wasn't exactly keeping track of where I would end up, as long as it was away from the eyes of Blueberry Pie Cookie. Eventually, I ended up in a single corridor, with bookshelves housing books that were all of the same series, Wizard's Guide to the Multiverse. Now, allow me to tell you something that I didn't know back then. Wizard's Guide to the Multiverse was a series of books part of the Wizard's Guide umbrella of series, which are essentially published research journals from a group of wizards on a variety of topics. But the Multiverse series would be the final part of the Wizard's Guide brand, as one of the researchers reportedly went completely insane during his research for one of the books. Out of respect for the wizard's legacy and for the potential use down the line, the wizard's notes were published anyway in the final book of the Wizard's Guide to the Multiverse series, and of the Wizard's Guide brand overall, which, by complete coincidence, was the book that I had grabbed off the shelf. Yep. Funny how those things happen, It sure is. Now, Chiffon, let me keep telling the story first. Then, when I'm done, I'll tell you. Oh, you dramatic little beast, you! But it's funny, really. My reading skills weren't very good back then. My reason for picking out the book at the time was that I liked the colors. They were my colors. That's the reason I gave myself back then, anyway. Though, looking back, I swear that something about that book just seemed to lure me in. Maybe after all those years of being locked up, I wanted to claim another victim, and that next victim could have been anyone, and I just happened to be there at the right time? Or perhaps there was something about me in particular that caused such an attraction? Either way, I was dead set on getting that book, no matter how hard it was to reach. I was a small cookie back then, and the book was on a shelf way up high. But despite that, I kept reaching. I reached with my cake claw, stretching it as far as it went. But by just a few fingers, I had a grip on the book's spine. I pulled it, trying to strengthen my grip on the book. But just then, I stumbled, losing my grip on the book, tumbling onto the floor, causing the bookshelf to rattle and dump its contents onto me. It made quite the racket, immediately revealing my location. Fearing the worst, I grabbed the book that I had my eyes on and ran. My destination was the front door. Dark Enchantress Cookie had told me beforehand that Blueberry Pie Cookie was not able to leave the archives. Of course, I had to dodge the attempts at capturing me made by both Blueberry Pie Cookie and some of the books themselves, but eventually I managed to find my way out, with Dark Enchantress Cookie following behind me. She performed a quick spell that caused Blueberry Pie Cookie, who was just about right behind Dark Enchantress Cookie at that moment, to trip over herself and slam the door shut behind her just for good measure. But the chase wasn't over just yet. Although Blueberry Pie Cookie herself could not step outside of the archives, she had something with her that could. When she opened the book she held in her hands, a massive apparition appeared from it, which reached out to the two of us. From where she stood, she cried out to us both. "Please, do not misunderstand my intentions. I mean no harm to either of you. I'm quite happy to see a young cookie wanting to read, in fact. But that book in particular is very, very dangerous, which is why it was kept away. It would be a travesty to see something bad happen to a cookie so young." It was a noble thought, really. But my heart and mind were already set on this book. I remember looking over and seeing the apparition from Blueberry Pie Cookie's book, and wondering if the book I held in my hands could do something similar. And with that thought, I began to tug at the chains wrapped around the book. My cake claw was quite sharp, even back then, so my progress of breaking the chains was relatively quick, and with every bit of progress, I heard it become louder. A symphony of voices unfamiliar to me, speaking in words that were nonsensical to me. With every cut into the chains, the voices grew louder, louder, and yet louder still. To me, it was a confirmation of my theory. When I opened that book, something would happen. Something that would help Duck Enchantress Cookie and I would happen. Hopefully.
What is it you seek from us, young one?
I want Miss Enchantress and I to be brought back to our home beasties, so that nothing bad happens to us.
Oh, but of course, young one. What a selfless request. Truly. Would you mind, in turn, letting us examine that mind of yours?
We won't do no harm to you. We swear by our Lord.
Besides, we must retrieve the information of your homeland from there. So we put you and your Miss Enchantress in the right spot.
Oh, yes, indeed, we do.
Yes, anything, as long as it lets us go home safely.
So be it then, young one.
Wait, I want to know who you... But before I could get an answer from the voices, I opened my eyes to see that they had done as I had asked. Duck Enchantress Cookie and I were home, and there I sat, with the book still in my hands. I began to tear up, feeling angry at myself for causing the mission to go awry, for making it so the Duck Enchantress Cookie could not grab a single book of her own. I profusely apologized to Duck Enchantress Cookie, blaming myself for everything. But she told me not to apologize, to not shed a single tear. A cookie as young as I was then should not be blamed for an honest mistake. And besides, the book I had picked out clearly proved to be useful. She told me she was proud of me, and that I had a keen eye for things that could serve us well, and wiped my tears away. She had planned to read the book I had picked out with me, given my low reading level, but she was called away to elsewhere before she could. Being left alone with the book, I began to read it on my own, and somehow, despite everything, I understood it. Not even Duck Enchantress Cookie could explain such a phenomenon. I've kept that book with me ever since. Even when I tried, I couldn't part from it. I've read it over so many times that by this point, I have most of it memorized nowadays. And that is why it stands there on my bedside table as we speak. Well, I did promise you I would, after I was done telling the story. Very well. You see, Chiffon, this book is about... Ah, come in. I have my hands full of cakehound at the moment.
This is probably a bad time then.
Oh, pomegranate cookie. What is it that you seek from me?
If you insist. It may be your day off, Red Velvet Cookie, but not all of us are taking breaks today.
Why, but of course. If all of us took the same day off, then nothing would get done.
Yes, but anyways, because of that fact, when my mirror showed me a vision of a recent adventure Gingerbrave and his friends had, I sent Licorice Cookie and Poison Mushroom Cookie out to investigate.
I see.
And they had returned with a sack of these strange trinkets that they had stolen from Gingerbrave. When I brought them to Dark Enchantress Cookie, she told me that you might know what they are.
Is that so? Just let me get this final cut on Chiffon's fur here and... There we go. Now, would you mind showing me this trinket you speak of, pomegranate cookie?
Of course.
Do my eyes deceive me? A magical ring portal?